So, let's talk about death. Disney has never been one to shy away from using the theme of death to add imagery and symbolism to their movies. Death can be interpreted in many different ways, and for Disney it ranges from incredibly abstract to graphically gruesome. The first Disney Silly Symphony was set in a graveyard with skeletons dancing, and the first Disney villain to die on screen in Disney feature-length movie was the old hag, who not only fell to her death off the edge of a cliff while attempting to murder the seven dwarves, but she was also crushed by a boulder and assumedly eaten by vultures. A fitting death to the queen of villainy, and a tradition that Disney would stick with throughout the 20th century, until twist villains came along and they're immune to death, apparently. Good thing Hades knows all the lawyers.
I know all the lawyers, alright?
There are only a handful of Disney films that don't deal with death at some point. Might it be a main theme, or death literally personified? Before I get into the video proper though, I want to make this statement. Death isn't evil. I personally do not believe death is a bad thing, and I also don't think it is something that we should fear, but I do think it should be respected. Evil is truthfully subjective, as with morality. How can something be inherently evil if it treats everyone with indifference? To treat the subject with as much respect as possible, death is nothing to laugh about. But in movies and TV shows, death can be depicted in overly theatrical, exaggerated, detailed, and sometimes comical, and even beautiful ways. But death in a movie or TV show is often treated with irreverence, not to cheapen its meaning, but because a character in the show doesn't respect it, or the rules of the world the movie is set in defies the laws of death, usually in the case of Looney Tunes cartoons and feature-length movies that have a slapstick logic when it comes to pain and death. Characters get shot and fall to their deaths only to appear in the next scene completely unharmed. In Disney movie magic logic, characters can and do die, and more importantly, they stay dead. I personally get royally peeved when a movie teases the audience into thinking a character has died, but actually hasn't. The Care Bear trope, as it's called, or the clap to believe in fairies thing, or brought back to life because of tears thing, or, just come back to life because, well, the plot demands it. It's not that I literally want the character to die, but that I want the movie to stick to its own rules, commit to the drama, and have the balls to actually be realistic when dealing with death as a theme and not sugarcoat it. Inexplicable resurrections by the end where a character is brought back to life for no real earned reason. I'm looking at you, Lilo and Stitch 2. Not just death, but also murder, something that Disney has depicted from the beginning. Snow White is killed off screen, but it was deliberately staged that way to show the sick celebration the hag did when Snow White does die. I never need an excuse to talk about Disney Hercules, but now that it is a quarter of a century old, and I can never shut up about this movie apparently, this is the best excuse ever. Not just because it's 25 years old now, but to me is one of Disney's best when it comes to the portrayals of death, whether it be about the Lord of the Dead himself, death as a theme, death as a literal action, or death being cheated. Best in the sense that it sticks to the tone and irreverency that was established from the start. With Meg's death in Disney Hercules, she is brought back to life because Hercules was in the unique position of actually being able to do something about it. He's a demigod. His uncle so happens to be the Lord of the Dead. So time to literally knock on hell's door and demand that Meg be released. Make a deal with the Lord of the Dead himself to bring her back since she died saving his life, breaking the deal Hades made, promising she wouldn't get hurt. The main problem with the movie is that unlike Hades, who keeps to his word, Hercules instantly breaks the deal he made with Hades after taking Meg from the River Styx by punching Hades in the face after he re-inherits his immortality. As much as I dislike what Hercules did at the end, to me this is one of the few times when the resurrection trope actually works, because not only is death an integral theme to the story, but also an integral part to one of the main characters, who happens to be immortal and laughs at death, not out of defiance but out of irreverence, which ends up being his downfall. Not to mention Meg does die on screen. Ballsy. It's no secret that I love villains, and to me the best Disney villain in design, personality and voice acting is Hades from Hercules. This is of course in part to the brilliant improvisation of actor James Woods, who prompted a rewrite of the character due to his approach of being a sleazy car salesman vibe to the role, changing the tone of the movie to be one of Disney's most meta movies in the 90s. due to the ingenious character design by Gerald Scarfe and the meticulously detailed animation by Nick Ranieri.
What is the weak link in Wonder Boy's chain?
Yeah, there's a drop in quality in the animation from the movie to the series, but the voice acting and writing is still top notch, still depicting Hades as the Lord of the Underworld or Lord of the Dead, not God of Death itself. That's Thanatos, by the way. He's closer to the Abrahamic Satan than the Greek god Hades here. But what else is new? Hades wasn't actually a bad guy in the original Greek mythology, but because Disney has to have good and evil with no grey areas, Death is, by no exceptions, evil in this story. So Hades, contrary to Greek myth, is evil out of spite by being lumped with the job of being Lord of the Dead, getting ironically peeved when his business is failing.
Our gift shop, Death and Stuff, is boasting record profits.
Tartarus has a gift shop. Death and Stuff. I need that shirt in my life now. Tartarus land is your land. Now buy our overpriced merchandise.
My business is dead people. And without dead people, my business is dead people.
Sentiment is foreign to him, and he looks down on people who are governed by emotion instead of reason.
How sentimental.
Hercules is an extremely sentimental character and tends to surround himself with others who are also sentimental, Phil being the most sentimental in this franchise. For a character like Hades, this is a trait that is easy to take advantage of. It may be a trait he lacks, but it's also a trait he exploits. Okay, so the movie itself doesn't follow its own logic, and the irreverence it has is expanded in the series to the point of having deliberate inconsistencies between the movie and the show.
Hurt's as good as dead. If Hercules were dead, don't you think I'd be the first to know?
And the mythology they're both based on, but in my opinion, Hades is still one of Disney's crowning jewels in not only how to write a villain into a story, but also how to write death into a story without making death itself evil. To quote the Warner Brothers movie The Iron Giant, it's bad to kill, but it's not bad to die. Hades is what we call lawfully evil. A lawful evil villain methodically takes what he wants within the limits of his code of conduct without regard for whom it hurts. He's not necessarily scary, but characters within the movie and show are scared of him. He's intimidating, intelligent, but also fun to watch, which to me is what a villain should be. They should be characters first and villains second. They should have a reason to be evil, not just be evil for the sake of it. They care about tradition, loyalty, and order, but not about freedom, dignity, or life. Hades doesn't care about Meg, for instance. To him, she's just another minion, someone he can delegate tasks to. And as he says in the episode The Pool Party,
You know, I delegate well.
no argument there. Hades, self-proclaimed master of the art of delegation. Even if Pain and Panic did fail to kill Hercules as a baby, he clearly has a code of conduct that he doesn't commit murder himself. Which is why it was so surprising to see him actually kill a character in the episode The First Doctor. In the Disney film, death is at first treated in a very irreverent way because that's how Hades sees it. To him, death and dead people are gross and is a burden he has to bear, thanks to the job of running the underworld charitably bestowed on him. In the Hercules series, especially in this episode though, Hades treats running the underworld like a business. It's not that he enjoys what he does, but that he hates being idle. It's a full-time gig, and if there's nothing for him to do, like there's a sudden drop in dead people arriving to the underworld for example, his purpose of being there is moot. Hence his attempts of overthrowing Zeus. Not just to get out of the basement as he calls it, but because to him, he is the better person for the job, as in his eyes, he can take the heat of ruling the cosmos better than his brother. And in some cases, I can agree with him. Zeus is kind of an idiot.
You think I'm omniscient or something? Yes.
So when a villain like Hades, whose business is dead people, what ungodly force would be bad for his business? What does the Lord of the Dead have to fear? What mortal other than Hercules could possibly pose a threat to the Lord of the Dead? The father of medicine himself, Hippocrates, who the fates just so happen not to warn Hades about. Hippocrates is credited with being the first person to believe that diseases were caused naturally, not because of superstition and, gods throwing curses around. Hippocrates was credited by the disciples of Pythagoras of allying philosophy and medicine. He separated the discipline of medicine from religion, believing and arguing that disease was not a punishment inflicted by the gods, but rather the product of environmental factors, diet and living habits. Yeah, there's not a single mention of a mystical illness in the entirety of the Hippocratic corpus. However, Hippocrates did work with many convictions that were based on what is now known to be incorrect anatomy and physiology, such as humorism. Or, to sum up,
I am Hippocrates. I am a doctor. I cure the sick.
What an ungodly force indeed. The ability to cure the sick is something only gods could do in this universe.
Hippocrates.
Blasphemy in ancient Greece, since only gods cured the sick, and diseases themselves were of course caused by gods as some sort of superstitious punishment, and is even a plot in an episode later on. The Hippocratic Oath is an oath of ethics, historically taken by physicians. It is one of the most widely known of Greek medical texts. In its original form, it requires a new physician to swear by a number of healing gods to uphold specific ethical standards. Medicine is a science because it is based on knowledge gained through careful study and experimentation, but it is also an art because it depends on how skillfully doctors and other medical workers apply this knowledge when dealing with patients. So for Hercules, a character who has at no point shown any interest in any other careers than hero or athlete, actually showing genuine interest in medical science is pretty interesting to me. This episode gives Hercules quite a bit of character development in that regard. Wherever the art of medicine is loved, there is also a love of humanity. Hercules and his friends Icarus and Cassandra are attending career day. Icarus finds his career as a thespian, while Cassandra is the full-time cynic, part-time seer. Hercules doesn't need career day since he's going to be a hero. Phil says that hero is not just an adventure, it's a job, and goes on to tell stories of how he and previous trainees took down various foes. So very much sees heroism as a science, while Hercules sees it more as an art. The two clash when Hercules refers to Hippocrates as a hero, and Phil is offended that Hercules would call him that, like it somehow diminishes Phil's position as a trainer of heroes.
He's a doctor.
That's a career? Might as well be a lawyer. Hey!
I know all the lawyers.
He knows nothing of medicine, so wouldn't be able to train someone in it, so therefore it is not heroic to him.
You, hero. Him, quack.
You know, I could recommend a good veterinarian.
A hero is a person or a main fictional character who, in the face of danger, combats adversity through feats of ingenuity, courage, or strength. In the movie, Hercules isn't exactly clever. I'd argue that he had to resort to ingenuity to defeat the Cyclops Titan, but only had to do that when he lost his strength. In the series though, Hercules is shown to be intuitive and inventive, showing that heroism is more than just overcoming obstacles and defeating monsters or preventing natural disasters. Pfft. Heroism is putting others first, even at your own peril. And amazingly enough, in this episode, Hippocrates is a perfect example of this and carries on putting others first, even in death. Phil grows jealous of Hercules spending so much time with Hippocrates because Phil hopes that Hercules sees him as a hero, but when Hercules sees Hippocrates as a hero, Phil feels threatened. Yeah, Hercules' motivation to become a hero is the expectation of getting to Olympus and becoming a god, so it isn't until he lets go of that expectation that he learns what a true hero is. But in the series, he seems to already more or less know this lesson already, and in some episodes teaches this lesson to other people, or at least demonstrates true heroism without expecting any reward. This episode is no different. Hercules is portrayed as the innocent golden farm boy ready and open to learn. Something the Hercules TV series did was show that diseases came from Hades himself, not as curses or punishments, but as something he could turn to when all other options were nullified. Yeah! Hades spreads a plague in this episode. I think you can now see why I avoided talking about this episode for so long, especially the last 2 years. In the Hercules TV series, it doesn't steer away from the theme of death. In fact, in this episode there are 2 on-screen deaths. One character dies of the plague, and Hippocrates is literally murdered by Hades himself by saving some of the plague just for him, after Hippocrates runs out of medicine by curing all of Athens. Hades goes to Hippocrates' hospital himself, ignoring Icarus' annoying hyperactive celebration of them stopping the plague, one of the funniest moments in the show in my opinion.
You stopped the plague. You stopped the plague. No, no, no more plague. No, no, no more medicine. No, no, no more medicine. Hades is here. Hades is ho.
Vindictiveness is a strong desire to get back at someone. People who hold grudges and seek revenge are full of vindictiveness, and Hades is very vindictive. If someone steps on your toe and you put on boots to stomp back, you're full of vindictiveness.
What are those?
Yeah, Hades sent Pain and Panic to trick Hercules into spreading a plague, waited until Hippocrates ran out of medicine to literally kill the guy on screen. So yeah, sometimes I forget Hades, at least in this reiteration, is evil, but he's having so much fun doing it.
The town is gonna put up a statue to you. If there's anybody left alive to build it! Ah! Gotta go, I'm too hip, I can't say.
So what happens when Hippocrates dies and goes to Tartarus? He starts curing dead people. Hippocrates, the Greek world's first doctor. He's so skilled that he managed to nullify any new entries into the underworld and almost put it out of business while he was alive. And when he ended up in the underworld as a dead person, he started curing dead people, bringing them back to life and depleting the underworld population. And when Hercules goes to get Hippocrates back, because Hercules is a stickler for justice, Hades begs the kid to get Hippocrates out of there to get him to stop curing dead people.
This guy is curing dead people, okay? I'm in the negatives. This is unprecedented. Get him out of here, please!
Disney fact, Hades invented golf.
You'll love it, golf, okay? I got a ton of great medical ideas for you, okay? Example, double billing. You get paid twice for something you did once. It's great. And no more house calls. You are an important man. Let them come to you. Here's a great one. HMOs!
God, I miss the NHS. Death itself is never funny, believe me. I know. But the situations before and after are filled with opportunities to laugh. Laughter is a stress reducer. It strengthens our immune system, improves our alertness, lowers blood pressure, and when it comes to death, humour can be a mark of maturity. It's a coping mechanism. It was a buffer from the negative effects that the stresses of grief brings. It makes a serious situation less taxing and less threatening. But when death is personified on screen, it is often depicted as intimidating, mysterious, neutral, and fair. So when death personified is actually funny, it teaches us that death is not something to be feared, but something to be respected. Death is a significant and inevitable part of life. Disney has never been afraid to face death head on, and to me their version of Hades is an ingenious way to depict the theme of death as something not to be feared, but to laugh at. Can't you appreciate irony? I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative.